mobile space, 500 Startups partner Edith Young shares her insights on how anyone can build the next traction-generating, revenue-earning mobile unicorn. Edith Young, please.
Thanks so much. Hi everyone, my name is Edith Young, and thank you for having me today. Just flew in from San Francisco a couple of days ago, and still a little bit jet lag, so bear with me if I'm a little bit slow. But having said that, I actually do talk really, really fast. I know we have a very limited time today, so I want to go through as much metrics as possible. And a lot of these conversations, when I talk to any of the mobile entrepreneurs and startup, I always ask, if you're working on an app, what's your install base, what's your monthly active, daily active. So hopefully from this presentation, when you and I do meet again, you know what I'm going to ask you. So a quick background about myself. I actually just joined 500 Startup about 7 months ago. So I actually run the 500 Mobile Collective Fund, focused on early stage mobile investment. Before that, I actually spent about 4 years with Dolphin Browser, actually a Sequoia-backed company. I think right now we have about 150 million installed worldwide, 99% Android. So definitely a lot of experience focused on user acquisition and partnership around mobile app. So when I started to think about sort of the mobile metrics, I started to talk to Dave McClure, and Dave actually started a R since 2009 about metrics for startups. And so to build on top of, and I basically said to him, Dave, a lot of this thesis is nice, but I think for mobile growth, particularly for mobile apps, is quite different. So I decided to put the mobile in front of the R, so there's basically MAR. And when I actually thinking about developing this particular theory in my head, I wanted to talk just like me, but of course I'm always trying to be funny, and I'm not that funny, so I'm not going to sort of do the laugh. But this is what we have in mind in terms of mobile growth. So what is the AARR really means is acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. So I actually developed the whole sort of framework, particularly just for mobile, and I'm going to go through that one by one with very specific screenshot. And most of these are basically lesson learned when I was running Dolphin on user acquisition. So just to start with first, user acquisition. I would suggest if you're working on a mobile app, at the end of the day, sure, like great, definitely I would love to chat with you that you have some thought about how to make money, but at the end of the day, if you don't have enough install, it really doesn't matter that much. So the number one thing that I think, first off, like when we first started with Dolphin, we didn't have any money. So the first thing is looking for ways that how can we actually drive as much install as possible without paying a dime. And I realized, the number one thing we don't do enough is App Store SEO. I'm definitely, disclaimer, there's a company that I recently invested in called Mobile Action. It's an awesome tool that actually Dolphin also use and still using. It's basically an App Store SEO analytic tools. Within a couple months, we actually double our organic install just by using Mobile Action, so I highly recommend it. But the idea with App Store SEO is all about thinking through, doesn't matter with title or description or even screenshot for your app, it matters in terms of driving more install. So, and also on top of that, with certain keywords, there's season for everything. So if you think about the US, Thanksgiving, Christmas, July 4th, these are all these holidays, and the way that people search on the App Store will actually varies and change. So you definitely need to continue to update your keywords and tags. Depends on what time of the year it is, and Mobile Action will actually tell you and suggest certain keywords that you should populate in the description itself. Second thing is, even though I did work on a browser after all, I still very much believe in mobile web, but you need to capture the fact that there are people could be searching for your app or certain keywords on an actual browser. So I actually have a couple of screenshots right here on the left-hand side is Yelp, on the right-hand side is LinkedIn. LinkedIn particularly sometimes really annoys me because you go into the actual mobile web, it forces you to have to go to the app itself. So in many ways, I think if you really focus on app, this is definitely the right way to do it because you want to drive the actual traffic back to the specific page in your app itself. So definitely want to take advantage of that. After that, at the very beginning of Dolphin, we, just like everybody else, we didn't have money, right? So we started to think, oh, you know, what if we have some blogger write about us or started to have some media coverage, would that work? I can tell you that if you get coverage from TechCrunch, sounds great, but for us it didn't drive any install at all, versus we got coverage, let's say, Lifehacker, and that really helps because these are the target audience. So you have to think about who is your target audience and what sort of media or blogs that they constantly read. Those are the ones that you should focus on and think about. So with Dolphin, I think for the first year and a half, 2 years, all we're focusing on are the first three things that I just talked about. But after we raised our first round, we decided, you know what, it's about time we do some more sort of bigger partnerships. So we definitely have gone after a lot of OEMs and carriers and asked them for preload. But I would not recommend this at all. In fact, if you're an early stage startup and you say, hey, we have a partnership with the carriers, I think that you're probably smoking because it will take you at least, just even you sign the contract today, it would take another 6 to 12 months for implementation. If you purely count on carrier OEM partnership, it's not going to work for your app. So you still need to focus on the consumer side of things. But once you get to a certain scale and have dedicated people for partnership, this is definitely a great way to think about to drive more user as well. So after that, let's say you do a lot of great work with product, capturing all these traffic from organic, and maybe you do now have some money to pay for install. So there's incentivized, non-incentivized install. Just this particular topic probably will take another hour just to talk about. But these days, at least in the US, I've seen more and more people just for try and error start with Facebook and Twitter. They actually do have fairly good and super targeted in terms of geo or even male or female that you can target in terms of driving install. I think that's pretty interesting for Explore. But most of the ad network that I'm aware of will require you to at least have $5,000 or $10,000 minimum buy. So if you don't have enough budget, I wouldn't go for that, but still, I wouldn't stay away from trying out Facebook and Twitter install app. Next, particular focus on Android. This is something absolutely free, and if you're not leveraging this, you should. So Google actually have a over-the-air, particular just for Android. So if you already have a PC version of web, because the Google ID that they use for App Store and Google account is exactly the same ID. So when you actually go into a particular website, you can actually put just 2 lines of code and ask them, would you also like our app on your phone? And if you say yes, that app just automatically appear on your Android phone. It's like magic. So if you're an Android developer, definitely check it out. A couple other things that we did really early on, app referral. I have to say that if you have very good partners, you go and tell them, look, I would love to drive you a few hundred install, and in exchange you would do the same thing for us. This is definitely something that we did quite a bit at very early stage, because what you don't want to do, let's say you even have $10,000 to spend, is to spend it all on one day. You don't want to do that. Instead, you want to gradually and make sure that you spread. So every day, let's say 2,000, 2,000, 3,000, and you don't want to all of a sudden have like 1 million, and you wouldn't be able to sustain on the app, the top chart. So you want to make sure that you at least stay on like the top 10, 25. That organic growth definitely drive a lot more install as well. So if you do any install exchange, you want to spread it out so you continue to have gradually increasing in terms of install base. Last but not least, I did spend a lot of time actually in Southeast Asia a few years back just to think and learn what other some secret way in emerging markets that we can get our app on there. So this is on the left hand side, this is a picture I took when I went to Indonesia. I'm sure that Singapore has similar thing because most of the emerging country, they buy the phone and the SIM card is completely separate. So when you actually go to a shopping mall to buy a phone, you will see there's so this lady who is like literally sitting down on the floor, and she charged about $5 to load 100 songs and 100 free apps. And I started talking to her. I said, why would I pay that? But I guess a lot of people just don't even want to pay for data to download anything. So they would rather pay her to get a whole bunch of apps on their phone than actually going to get free apps from the App Store. So we learned that and realized that even an actual console, like a PC admin version, so you can actually plug into your USB, and then all of a sudden in seconds, the phone will be loaded with hundreds of apps. So of course I was talking to her and trying to get our app on that list as well. So we've just gone through a whole bunch of ways to drive install. So at the end of the day, once you get the install, is really just part one, because you get your app on the phone, so what? It says attention span is really, really short. You want to make sure that these install become true user. So what I'm going to go through just to give you guys a few tips, this is really the strong metric between the actual download to an active user, and how do you actually get an active user from a monthly active to a daily active. All these are very, very important metrics that you need to focus on. But let's say you get the app itself on the phone, and now you want to activate them. And so these are just a matter of choice, but you really need to think about what is the onboarding process. Is your app so easy to use, the minute I open it, I just know how to use it? Or you actually have to explain step by step, then the user will know how to use it. So if you're app developers and I start checking out and talking about your startup, the first thing I usually do is to go and download your app. If I don't even get it, there's almost no point for conversation. But with this particular example, on the left-hand side, they actually choose to do social login. Sometimes it sort of scares people away, but at the same time, the good thing is you will get a whole lot of more data. Particularly with Facebook, you can actually ask for permission on top of emails, gender, contact, a whole bunch of things that you can analyze. After that, a good tutorial means a lot. I would suggest not overdo it. I think most of the good apps I have seen at the very beginning, about 3 or 4 screens that explain the benefit of the app rather than too much details. This is actually another investment I've done called Human. So they're really, really good at, now discover people around you who are the other runners and people who are active. Then after that, assuming you actually get your email for the user right away, it sounds very Web 2.0. I still think that email work really, really well. So this is an example of Dropbox. After you sign up for the service, they will actually send an email of welcome and give you 2, at least maximum 3 ideas of what you should do with the app itself. So step 1, 2, 3, these are the 3 things that you should now do with our product. Imagine, sort of for you guys, what are some of the top 2 things that you would like your user to do? And then they will become more active as a user. So next, I actually love people who do push notification right. This particular example is an app from Japan called Smart News. The way that I love the way that they do it, because it's a permission-based push notification. So because it's new, so Monday, Wednesday, basically in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, they will ask you, when exactly would you like me to push you more news? Right? So if you get the push notification with relevant things that you give them permission to push, the likelihood of them to come back to your app to check out the detail of that push is much higher. So I love the way that they do it, but again, it depends on what kind of app that you're working on. And then last but not least, I think sometimes could be a push, or also could be sort of overlay within the app itself. But don't do it too soon. I would suggest maybe after a certain period of time, or after X number of time that particular user has opened the app, then you can ask the user to share with their friends. This is a very, very powerful way, to activate and potentially bring in even more users. And then last but not least, once you get onboarding, tutorial, set up the push notification right, when you first land the first screen on your app, you're going to show your user what exactly is the one thing you want them to do. I think a lot of apps, because you care about your app so much, you want them to do everything. But the fact it doesn't work that way. Psychologically, people can only handle one thing. So what is the one thing? So definitely highly recommend you A/B test different wording and like color of the various buttons. All those are super important to activate a user itself. So I have about 5 minutes left. Now I have 3 more, so the rest of the R to go through. After you get the install, you activate them. So next thing is all about retention. So how do you do retention? As I mentioned earlier, a push notification is an awesome, awesome way to drive them to come back. But it's all about really well-crafted message and very specific. I'm happy to brainstorm, depends on what sort of app that you're working on. But in general, I think a lot of app developers should learn from game developers because if you think about it, gaming still make over 90% of the revenue on mobile today, and they're really, really good at doing all these different marketing push. So definitely learn from them. And then after you bring them back, I think after a certain period of time or usage, you should definitely ask your user to give you good rating on the App Store. The better, more 5-star rating, the better, both for both Android and iOS. But of course, you should suggest. So we also, in the past, we tried different things, but usually, I think for us, work the best would be just give us a 5-star rating, sort of lure them into, give us good comment. And then after that, in terms of retention, this is another company that I advise called Strikingly. I love them. And they send me a weekly email to tell me that my website now this week have X number of visits. So automatically I want to improve and then I want to come back. So this again depends if you have a PC web version. Of course, it go back to web, but based on user agent, you can also open either the app itself or mobile web page. Depends on how you want to drive this email traffic. And then in terms of retention, as I mentioned earlier, I think all the app developers should learn from gaming. Game developer is super good at seasonal campaign, like holiday gifts on New Year, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Is there any, or Singapore have tons of more holidays? Like what kind of stuff, like right now is, like doesn't matter where you're at, you just have to be aware of by geography, location, and the holidays and how you can actually do more campaign around to get more engagement back. And then last but not least, this is particular for Android app. If you're doing any sort of utility app, you want your app to be the default on Android. So when I was working on browser, obviously I want all my Android users to set Dolphin as a default browser. But this is something you can also push your user to set as well. So if you sort of any utility or calling app, all these can be, you want your user to set you as a default. All right, I have 2 more minutes to go, so 1 minute each for each bucket. One is referral. So with referral, I'm giving, this is Spotify and how they actually display on the feed itself, on the music that your user is listening to. If you're working on any apps that is content related, video, music, even article, things that you can shareable, make sure that your logo is really well displayed on any social network so people know that, oh, these content come from a particular app. It's super helpful. And then after that, in terms of referral, is there any actual price or dollar value for your app? Is it a pay app? Is that possible for you to give out a discount or free trial for your existing user to refer to their users? This is also another very, very powerful way to think about. And then I'm going to move on to revenue. This probably keep me up at night for many, many, many months, and to think about, okay, great, we have millions of users, so what? How are we going to make money? It's very, very tough things to do, but I'm going to give you a few tips. I'm actually an auditorial learner, so I listen to book instead of reading. So I pay for Audible every month. Even though I have so much credit, I still continue to pay for it. So think about, whatever you provide be a subscription or have a monthly value tied to it? That's one way to make money. And then second, of course, remember Flappy Bird out of Vietnam? It makes so much money purely for advertising. This is a strategy as well. It's actually, if you get a lot of eyeballs, think about Facebook, Twitter, most of the most successful sort of Web 2.0, now mobile, are all purely make money off of advertising. So that could be a way to go if you decide you have no actual tangible value for your product. Or push virtual goods. Candy Crush, I actually, when I have nothing to do on the plane, no Wi-Fi, I play Candy Crush. And sometimes on a regular basis, depends on my behavior, it will actually get me to buy more coins. So can you do something similar to this as well with your app? And then commerce, I am very interested, particularly investing in Southeast Asia on mobile on-demand commerce. So if you're working on something similar, because the dollar amount in transaction value is very clear. Happy to talk to anyone who's working on it. I'm very interested, particularly in Southeast Asia. And then partnership and revenue share. So this is a screenshot of on Google, even for Singapore. If on Google Maps, if you want to go one place to another, it actually would suggest Uber. And this is, I think, one of the killer partnership. Can you imagine you want to go one place and Uber is like right there for you to call? And I'm very sure that the revenue share with Google as well. So there's definitely more ways in terms of driving revenue. And then last but not least, on making money, think about selling data. So IBM recently partnered up with Twitter and actually Facebook to utilize their social data to sell to corporate to do better predictive analysis and marketing and all that. But again, I wouldn't recommend it until you get to a certain scale with at least 100 million user and plus. So with that, that's the whole framework about mobile metrics, and I look forward to our next panel and chat more. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. Please remain on stage so that you can join the next panel. So we'll kickstart with our first panel for the day. And please, if you haven't already logged into Pigeonhole, please do the following. Please go to the Pigeonhole